It's about that time.
Stoned on Sports.
How's it going, everybody? You are tuned in to Stoned on Sports Fantasy Football. My name is Matt. Got the awesome co-host Kyle here with me today, and we are on the march to 100 subscribers. So if you like what you hear and you enjoy what you see, go ahead and subscribe. We'd really appreciate it. It doesn't cost you a thing. Today, we are going over our starts and sits of the week, and there might even be a few surprise names on there. Some names you may not be used to seeing on lists like this. Kyle, how the hell's it going, brother?
Yeah, I'm doing great here. Got the Tigers game off to the side here, game 4 against Cleveland. So focused on fantasy football for you guys, but you see me peeking out to the right. I got to check, I got to see what's happening because this is just huge for the Tigers. But we're not here for that. We are here for starts and sits for week 6. We got five for you to start and 5 for who you should consider benching or, expect super low floor plays in that. So first one we got going 6 weeks ago, the idea of ever starting Daniel Jones in fantasy football would have seemed downright absurd. But Matt, is it time to actually trust him as a starter in QB1 leagues?
I mean,
or one
trust
QB
is
leagues,
a pretty strong word. With him, it's a week-by-week kind of thing, but don't look now. Danny Dimes has been a top 12 QB the last 4 weeks. Granted, his stats have been relatively modest over that time. He is completing nearly 68% of his passes, though, 952 yards, 6 touchdowns, and just 1 pick. And he's also chipped in 93 yards on the ground. Now, it's looking like for the game this weekend, he may not have his full complement of receivers. Malik Neighbors is still looking pretty iffy to play after suffering that concussion coming up on 2 weeks ago. But Darius Slayton did an admirable job filling in for him last week. He went 8 for 122 and a touch. And look, that Bengals defense is ass. Last week, they gave up 348 yards and 4 touchdowns, along with 55 rushing yards to Lamar Jackson. In week 3, they gave up 254 yards and 2 touchdowns, 39 rushing yards, and 1 touchdown to Jaden Daniels. Now, Daniel Jones isn't Lamar or Jaden Daniels, but he's very athletic, and he's shown many times in the past that he can make plays with his legs when the turf monster doesn't get to him. The Giants also appear to have found a little something in Tyrone Tracy, a versatile weapon out of the backfield. This game has one of the highest totals on the board this week, and considering how bad both defenses are, I wouldn't be surprised if this is a game that shoots out and goes over the total. At the end of the day, I think he's a top 7 option at the position this week, considering the injuries and bye weeks and everything else that's going on. And Daniel Jones has shown in years past that he can live up to that standard. It wasn't too long ago where he finished as a top 10 quarterback for the season.
Yeah.
Now, a lot of it comes from his rushing ability and you're going to take it. I think by now all of us are aware that that's pretty much a cheat code when it comes to fantasy football. If you can find yourself a running quarterback, he's got to be available in damn near every league just based on his reputation. I don't have the exact ownership numbers in front of me, but I'm very confident in saying, he's
18% in Yahoo.
Yeah, he should be available in all but the deepest leagues. It's a great matchup. Darius Slayton, like I said, he filled in well last week. He's somebody that's got some talent as well. Obviously he's not Malik Neighbors, but he can hold his own. I think you and I could do halfway decent against that Bengals secondary. So you know what? If you're hurting at QB, or if you find yourself and you're looking at the matchup and thinking, damn, I really need some upside, I think Daniel Jones can give that to you.
Yeah, I think so too. Considering with Neighbors out last week, they did well. He had over 250 passing yards, and that on-field chemistry he's shown with Wan'Dale Robinson, I think is definitely a recipe to find success against a leaky pass defense in the Bengals for sure.
Agree wholeheartedly, dude. The first 3 weeks of the season, I think pretty much everyone was ready to call DeAndre Swift a bust. And then all of a sudden, dude has turned it on lately. Do you think he's going to make it 3 weeks in a row?
I think there's a great possibility that the matchup's pretty nice. And yeah, it was starting to look like that was a bad signing for the Bears there for the first 3 weeks, scoring just a total of 19.4 fantasy points. And he's made quite the turnaround after his last 2 games. He's become what I think is a must start. And, you know, how quickly things change in fantasy. In the last 2 weeks, he's had 37 carries, 166 yards, 3 touchdowns, plus 119 through the air, averaging 24.8 PPR points per game in weeks 4 and 5, making him RB 17 on the year in PPR. Out of 28 running backs with at least 50 rush attempts, a lot of it is not good, but it does include weeks 1 through 3 where, you know, he just sucked. So he is last in PFF's rush grade, but he does have the 8th best receiving grade. He's second to last in yards per carry at 3.2, but he has brought that up to 4.5 yards per carry in weeks 4 and 5. He's 20th in total rush yards overall, last in yak per attempt, just 1.86 yards. Pretty bad, but he has improved it a tick in weeks 4 and 5 as well. And he hasn't forced many tackles. He's 22nd in missed tackles forced with just 9. But he does have the 11th best breakaway rate, according to PFF. He is tied for 13th in total touchdowns this year. Just 2. Both of them were rushing. I think Swift would have had even more points if Roschon Johnson hasn't vultured 3 touchdowns from him in the last 2 weeks. So the opponent, week 6, that's a London game at 9:30 Eastern AM on Sunday. Jacksonville, the Jaguars, they allow the 4th most points to running backs. They've allowed 13 plus points to 5 different running backs this season, including 3 who have scored more than 18 points and 1 over 20. So, you know, regardless of Roschon Johnson, you know, vulturing some touchdowns, I think the elite production there from Swift has really propelled him into low-end RB1 territory this week against a very vulnerable Jacksonville run defense. Yeah, I'm going to continue to ride him while he's hot.
Yeah, especially in a matchup like that. And also, too, I think it's important to note that really his increase in production has coincided with Caleb Williams' increased quality of play.
Yeah, for sure.
So we got Himothy here with a question in the chat. He needs to start 2 wide receivers and 2 flexes. His options are Drake London, Jamar Chase, Wan'Dale Robinson, Chris Olave, Deebo Samuel, and J.K. Dobbins. I think this is an easy one for me, but what are your thoughts, Kyle?
Just off the top of my head, I'm going London, Chase, Wan'Dale, and Deebo.
Yeah, same. You know, Dobbins, he's been really good, but that is a damn tough matchup going against the Broncos. Chris Olave is going to have Spencer friggin' Rattler throwing to him. I'm not going to trust that whatsoever. Even with Malik Neighbors in the picture, Wan'Dale was still getting like damn near 20, 25, 28% of targets there. That's just something you can't ignore. Jamar Chase, you're never going to sit. I think Drake London is a top 5 option this week, and Deebo is Deebo. Yeah. So, yeah, that's an easy one for me. Good luck, brother.
Absolutely. So the good news is Najee Harris is the clear lead back for the Pittsburgh Steelers. The bad news is it hasn't translated into Jack Squad. So if I think there's ever a week for Najee to bounce back, it's this week at the Raiders. How do you feel, Matt?
I think so too. Coincidentally, I was watching, it was like Dark Side of Comedy or something like that about Chris Farley the other day. It was a really interesting watch. Cordero Patterson's going to be out. Jaylen Warren is likely out as well. You've got a Raiders team that's allowing the 6th most points per game to running backs. They're allowing 4.9 yards a carry, and they forced exactly 1 fumble this season. I ain't gonna lie. Look, we've dogged Najee all season long, but if he's ever going to bust out, this is the week, right?
Yep.
You know, the Steelers don't exactly have a high scoring offense. They've only scored 20 plus points once. That offense is going to continue to be run heavy despite Justin Fields' newfound efficiency, and Najee's getting the volume. He's got 16 touches at least in each of his last 3 games. I think there's a really good chance he scores a touchdown this week, provided Fields doesn't snipe it from him. Honestly, I'm going to plant my flag and say Najee finishes as a top 12 running back this week. I know it sounds a little bit crazy just given how he's performed this year, but at the same time, like, there's nobody else there in the backfield really to take any amount of carries away from him. I expect the Steelers to win this game. The Raiders are making a change at quarterback, going with Aiden O'Connell. That's not striking fear into anybody. This is a recipe for him to finally produce this season in a way that he hasn't yet. Now, could I be wrong? Absolutely. Wouldn't be the first time, won't be the last. And come next Tuesday, if Najee goes out there and shits the bed, I'll be the first to raise my hand and say, hey, I was wrong. I don't see it happening this week, though. I think this is going to be his week.
Yeah, I think so. I do have a slight concern with Justin Fields under center. I expect, Najee's ceiling to maybe be, cap there because the dual threat quarterback has already racked up 44 carries so far this year. So, and 2 touchdowns on the ground. So that's my only concern. But in the home league, I am starting him just for the volume. I hope this is the week he finally breaks through, has a good game against a weak defense. Absolutely. We got a question in the chat. KJ Frederick. Welcome to the show, man. Appreciate it. Mike Evans, Dobbins, or Ray McLeod for flex spot in a full PPR.
So it's definitely not Mike Evans, and we'll get into that a little bit later. Ray McLeod, that the third option there in the offense, to me, it comes down to Dobbins or McLeod. I'm going to take the volume here and go with Dobbins in a tough matchup.
Yeah, I agree as well. And yeah, the Mike Evans thing, yeah, you'll see in a minute, but it's just his career experience against the Saints has never been well in fantasy, and we will definitely go in depth on that.
Where are we at next? On paper, the Ravens defense, was one we have feared in fantasy for a very long time, but over the past couple weeks, they've been getting their dicks knocked in the dirt. That secondary has been abused. And now all of a sudden, Washington has themselves a quarterback, somebody who can reliably get the ball to their receivers. How do you think Terry McLaurin's going to do this week?
He's, like you said, he's been pretty hot over the past couple weeks. He is wide receiver 24 on the year. And, the first couple weeks was abysmal, just a total of 39 yards those first 2 weeks. But there was no way, given his talent and the way that this offense has functioned pretty highly, that his production would continue to suck. He's produced 264 receiving yards over his past 3 games, including 2 in which he had at least 100 receiving yards. And in those 3 weeks, the past 3 weeks, he's averaging 17.2 points in PPR per game with a 30% target share. The connection that Matt mentioned there that we are seeing with Jaden Daniels has put McLaurin in the low end wide receiver 1, high end wide receiver 2 conversation most weeks moving forward. After looking into the data a bit deeper, you'll find their connection has 61% of the Commanders' air yards this year. Plus, it helps that McLaurin has a 94% route participation rate. That's damn good. Scary Terry is a must start this week versus they got to go on the road to Baltimore. And after y'all seen them get lit up by Joe Burrow last week, who threw for just shy of 400 yards and 5 freaking touchdowns. And while the Ravens allow a league low 60 yards per game on the ground, they are not the fantasy defense they once were, as Matt mentioned. This used to be a matchup to avoid, but now it's one offenses can take advantage of, especially in the passing game. They rank next to last in passing yards allowed per game, allowing 280 per contest. From a fantasy perspective, they're allowing the 5th most fantasy points per game, 44 this season, to wide receivers, and the 3rd most points to outside receivers, where Terry McLaurin lines up over 80% of the time. They've allowed 968. Baltimore's allowed 968 total yards and eight receiving touchdowns to the position. Those 8 touchdowns are tied for second most with Carolina, with Washington, their opponent this week, with the most at 10. Could be some high scoring affair there in the air for sure. So McLaurin's no slouch. Has a quarterback. He didn't have a quarterback for his whole career, but still put up 4 straight 1,000-yard seasons. He's the legitimate alpha receiver there. I think you'll definitely see a bump in targets this week as a large road underdog to Baltimore. The line on DK is Baltimore -7 right now. High-end wide receiver 2 this week with the potential for a top 5 splash finish. Calling it here.
Yeah, I think Washington has a great chance to cover that spread. Jaden Daniels is the truth, brother. He is the truth.
It is. We'll see. It's a big test for them.
It is, and it took them a couple of weeks to figure out that, like, hey, Terry McLaurin is a thing. He is a useful piece of this offense. Perhaps I should throw the ball to him in the air because he can catch it. But once they did, straight to the moon. Straight to the moon.
All right, next up, we got Darnell Mooney has emerged as one of Kirk Cousins' go-to options, and it's time to buy into the Mooney hype. He's got a pretty damn good matchup this week, Matt. Why don't you talk about it?
I like how I did that, straight to the moon, and now we got Darnell Mooney.
Love it.
That shit was planned out. So Darnell Mooney, he has at least 6 targets in each of the last 4 games, including 16 in last week's overtime win. Look, he ain't going to get another 16 this week. I mean, Cousins threw for 584,000 yards in that game. Was an anomaly, right? We're not going to expect that every week, but still, he's showing good chemistry with Cousins, and he is the team's primary deep threat. This dude is top 10 in air yards and 14th in receiving yards. Well, what about the matchup? Well, the Panthers are allowing the 10th most points to wide receivers. They're bottom 10 in yardage allowed to wide receivers, yards per reception, 20-plus yard receptions. They allowed the second most 40-plus yard receptions, and they've allowed the most touchdowns to wide receivers. So I would say they've got some challenges there in their secondary. This cat plays all over the formation, and it's pretty much evenly split, including the slot. He'll play the X, the Y, or the Z. Regardless of who he draws in coverage, he should be able to win really without a problem. The Panthers are bottom 3rd in coverage grade, according to PFF, with pretty much a non-existent pass rush. So Cousins should get plenty of time back there to hang out in the pocket. And we're talking about a dude who is just one of 4 receivers with 8 catches of 20 yards or more, and he's tied for 12th in receptions over 30 yards. At minimum, I think he's going to be a mid-wide receiver 2 with a chance to be a wide receiver 1, depending on how targets shake out between him and Drake London. And something that's just kind of interesting, his 24% target share is more than Mike Evans, DK Metcalf, and CD Lamb. Yeah. There ain't no way in hell, if you would have told me that before the season, that Darnell Mooney would have a higher target share than CD Lamb, I tell you were crazy, because there just wasn't going to be any way. And I think a lot of us coming into the year thought it was going to be the London and Pitts show. And Pitts had a decent game last week, but he's really kind of been a non-factor.
Yeah. I mean, all those years we were wondering if Darnell Mooney was actually a good player or not, because he just constantly got overthrown by Justin Fields there in their time in Chicago. And, he was basically, everybody labeled him an overrated vertical threat, but he's found a home here in Atlanta, and jump on him in fantasy. He's a great player right now.
Hell yeah.
We got Himothy in the chat. Likes to know Cade Otton or Laporta this week. The numbers say go with Otton, but I think that Cowboys Detroit game could shoot out a bit with a high total there. They love to pass, and we're pretty damn good as well. So I vote for Laporta, but what do you think, Matt?
Yeah, I'm going to agree with that. I mean, that last time I looked, that game had a 52.5 point total. I think they'll get every bit of that and maybe a little bit more. That Cowboys defense has really gone downhill. Really last season into this year, Detroit can run the ball. They can throw the ball. They can do it all. Laporta is a key to that offense, whereas Otten, maybe not so much, right? There's some other talent there. I'm going with Laporta. Start your studs, dude.
Yeah. Next up, Cap for Life's got a question. Welcome to the show. Thanks for stopping by. 14 team PPR needs a flex spot filled. I'm guessing Antonio Gibson, Adonai Mitchell, and Dalton Schultz. I'm guessing. Adonai Mitchell's got a great or not a very good matchup as the Titans allow the fewest points to tight ends.
Well, that don't matter because he's a wide receiver.
Yeah, wide receiver. Sorry. I don't know why I said tight end. I think I got Schultz. I was trying to anyway, Schultz is a good one because Nico's out.
Yes.
I do like that. The target volume should be up there in a PPR. That's where my gut's telling me.
Yep. So Ramondre didn't practice today. So if Ramondre is out, I'm going with Gibson. He got the start last week, but didn't really do shit with it. But if Ramondre is out, I think he's going to get a bigger workload. If Ramondre plays, I'm going to go with Dalton Schultz. He showed last year that he has some decent chemistry with Stroud down there in Houston. You know, that the matchup, like New England ain't going to do shit against Houston, really. You know, let's be real here.
Yeah.
But at the same time, we're going to look for the volume.
Yeah.
And if Ramondre is out, Gibson is going to get the volume, because even though Nico is out for Houston and he's going to miss the next several weeks, that still might only mean 5 targets for Schultz.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. You're totally right. I just hate everything about that New England offense, and I think you're going to get dick for fantasy out of that. That's all I'm saying.
And they're starting Drake May, which that makes absolutely no sense. That offensive line is a damn sieve.
Yep. Nope. You need to give him the Aaron Rodgers. Let him sit for a couple of years. The Jordan Love. Let him sit for a couple of years or a year, at least a damn year. Throwing him out there to the wolves is kind of what it feels like.
Yeah.
Good luck there, Cap for Life. Kelsey, is it time to dump Pacheco?
If you don't need that IR spot, hang on to him. There's still some back and forth as to, is he going to be back? Is he not going to be back? If he does come back, we know he can produce. And with the way injuries are going right now, running backs like that are going to be very difficult to find. Now, if it is revealed that his ass ain't coming back, then yeah, throw his ass to the curb.
And I agree totally. Cap, thoughts on Kamani Vidal? He does have JK. Do I handcuff and drop the Gus the bus?
Yeah, Gus is bullshit.
Yeah.
And really, now that he's there with the Chargers, I think it becomes evident that the key to his success was the amount of attention that Lamar took. And that's what helped him, because he went from a 5 yards a carry down to like 2.9 or whatever his ass is doing this year. And he was always a limited back anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah. I kick Gus to the curb, pick up Kamani Vidal. You never know, man. You never know.
Maddie's new handle, throw his ass to the curb.
There we go. Hell yes.
All right. So that was 5 starts. Now we got 5 sits, right?
That's it, man. And we're going to go. We just talked about this game a moment ago. We're going to go to Dallas. Rico Dowdle kind of broke out last week. He got some volume. I don't know. He had 20 carries for 80 yards or some shit like that. But he's got a tough ass matchup this week.
Yeah. His stock, I guess, was on the rise. He scored 13 plus points in 2 straight games and is coming off his best game of the season, as Matt mentioned, where he racked up 114 total scrimmage yards and a tutty. So why fade him, right? Why should we fade him? It's simple. The Detroit Lions run defense. They are a force to be reckoned with on that side of the ball, allowing the 4th fewest rushing yards per game at 90.8, 3rd fewest fantasy points to running backs at 17.6, allowed just 4 rushing touchdowns, and Kenneth Walker had 3 of them in week 4, tied for first with the Giants and the Chargers with just 2 touches allowed to running backs in the red zone, both again to KW3. So while their defense did get shredded by Walker in week 4, no other back has beaten them for more than 14.4 PPR points. So that doesn't look too good for Dowdle, right? I think, the touches that he does get, he's going to have to make the most out of them. And I just don't see it happening against the Detroit Lions defense. And he saw the 20 carries, as Matt mentioned, but he still has not had a snap rate of over 50% in any game this season. There's a reason he's running back 28 on the season. And the run game in Dallas, it effing stinks. They're second to last in the league in rush yards per game at just 82. Out of the 28 running backs with 50-plus rush attempts, Dowdle is 18th in yards per carry, averages 4.1. His PFF rush grade is 20th overall. He's 24th in yards after contact per attempt, tied for 18th in missed tackles, 4th with just 11. I think the game script's going to be working against him in this tough matchup. I would leave Dowdle on your bench. I think the Lions will maintain a lead in this game, which I think it should be expected, but he has little to no value as a fantasy starter this week for me.
Yeah, agree wholeheartedly. That Detroit run defense is fantastic, and it has been for the past couple of years, really. Excuse me, Rico Dowdle, he's already a limited kind of player, right? Yeah. It's not like he's a superstar. So, yeah, he's a Jag, dude. And you put a Jag up against a damn good run defense like that, and he just becomes nothing.
Yeah, it's not good. It's not good. Okay. Mike Evans, a sit?
Surely you can't be serious.
I am serious, and don't call me Shirley.
Matt, tell everyone more about the history of Mike Evans versus the Saints.
That's it. You bet your ass, brother. If I got him, he is on my bench. And look, we're talking about the wide receiver 10 on the season in PPR. And over the past 2 weeks, he's the wide receiver 3, going over 23 points in each contest. And it really seems odd to sit him, right?
Yeah, super.
I got 2 words for you, brother. Marshawn Lattimore.
That's it.
In 14 games against Lattimore, he averages 3 receptions for 52 yards with 3 total touchdowns. He has 1 game with more than 5 receptions. He has 1 game with over 100 yards. Now, look, 100 yards is a pretty high bar, right? That's a lot. What about 75 yards? 2. And both of them came in 2018. Since 2021, he is averaging 2.5 receptions and 48.5 yards per contest. In 2017, Evans was suspended for a game for shoving Lattimore. And in 2022, both Evans and Lattimore were ejected for fighting. And look, football is a game of matchups, right? And Marshawn Lattimore is one of those corners that just matches up incredibly well against those bigger bodied receivers, which is what Mike Evans is.
Yeah. In the last 6 seasons, it's been a fantasy rule. You just don't do it.
Yeah, absolutely.
If I think there was a matchup where Lattimore was hurt, Mike Evans might have had a good one, but just don't do it. You're going to be disappointed.
Well, no, you're not going to be disappointed, because what you're going to do is listen to what the hell I'm telling you and put him on your bench. Now, look, I completely understand. You may not have another option, right? You might say, Matt, you're full of shit. You don't know what you're talking about. I ain't listening to you. All right, cool. Don't. You know what? But on Tuesday, I don't want to hear it when he goes out there and has 3 for 40 with no touchdowns, and you lose because of it. And you had somebody like Darnell Mooney on your bench who you could have started in his place.
Yeah.
But look, if something happens once, shit happens, right? If it happens twice, all right, cool. 3 times is a trend. When you get to 14 times, it's a shitty matchup. It is what it is. Lattimore owns his ass. Mike Evans is a first ballot Hall of Fame receiver. Yep. But he has his nemesis in Marshawn Lattimore, and he has come out on the short end of that matchup pretty much every fucking time
again. Yep. It's just don't do it. I don't have Mike Evans this year, but if I did, it's just not smart. I mean,
No,
yeah, could he break loose on one and get 90 yards and break loose? Sure, Marshawn Lattimore could fall the fuck down. I mean, it could happen. It's not probable.
It's really not.
Kelsey, is Mixon playing? He was spotted at practice today. Did practice in a limited fashion. I'm also following that as well because I have him rostered in my home league, which is I really, really need him this week. So we'll see. So that'd be the first time he practiced at all since the Friday before week 4.
I'm also following that because I have Cam Akers in my home league, and my team has been prison raped by injuries. So
everybody's has. I think
Oh,
it's rough this year, and a lot of big players too. And it sucks. And just when you're like, all right, AR's hurt, Flacco and Pittman have a good game. Now Pittman's on. It just snowballs. You know,
it sucks.
it does suck. But with Mike Evans, you know, and the Saints being without Derek Carr and having to start Rattler, you know, that defense is going to have to be even better for the Saints. And I think they're going to be hyped for this matchup, you know, in the division.
Yo, fuck!
Oh, Ramirez just jacked one. At least it was just one. At least it was just a solo shot. All right. Cleveland's up 2-1. All right, but we're not here for baseball, but yeah, we're a little upset. It's all right. There's nothing like the tension of postseason baseball. Yes. Nothing like it.
Anyways, we're here to talk football.
Yeah, we are.
The struggles of Trevor Lawrence and the Jaguars have been pretty well documented. They're like 2-10 in their last 12 games. Christian Kirk was somebody that was, you know, high on a lot of people's radar coming into the season. I think to say he's been a disappointment would be an understatement. Kyle, are you going to put him on the bench?
Well, I was going to until Pittman got hurt in the one league, so I might be forced to start him, but it's total desperation. I might figure something else out. But this is not the Christian Kirk from 2022 who saw over 130 targets, had 8 touchdowns, and gained over 1,100 yards. He's wide receiver 36 on the year. So just barely a wide receiver 3 in fantasy, which in all honesty is actually pretty close to where he was being drafted, wide receiver 33. But I think all of us that drafted him, myself included, we expected more. What we definitely didn't expect was rookie Brian Thomas Jr. taking over the number 1 role there in Jacksonville. Through 5 games, Thomas leads Kirk in every statistical category from receiving yards, receptions, targets, yards per receptions, yards after the catch to touchdowns and fantasy points. Fucking everything. Among the 34 wide receivers with 30-plus targets this season, Christian Kirk ranks 27th in PFF receiving grade, 25th in total receiving yards, 21st in catch rate. It's horrible. 63.6 catch rate is shit. He's tied for 23rd in yards after contact per attempt with just 3. Tied for 25th in drop rate at 8.7%. These are on-target passes that are dropped by the receiver. And an interesting fact, BTJ's drop rate is worse at 12%. This tells me that even though they're on target, I don't know who decides what's on or off target, you know, but it tells me Trevor Lawrence ain't throwing a very good ball. That's what it tells me. So some good for Kirk. He is top 10 in route participation among wide receivers, 95.5%. Not translating into scoring any damn fantasy points. And speaking of fantasy points, this week doesn't help. The Jaguars host the Bears in London. They'll be facing a defense that just held Andy Dalton to 136 passing yards. I know that's not saying too much. And they also limited Deontay Johnson to just 3 catches for 23 yards. Chicago Bears allow the 7th fewest points to wide receivers, 25-8, and they've allowed 0 touchdowns to slot receivers this season, where Kirk lines up almost 82% of the time. For me, he's a very low-end wide receiver 3 or a desperate flex play this week. And I can't help but think that if Jacksonville, as bad as they are, somehow worked out a deal and traded him to the Chiefs, how his fantasy outlook would just fucking explode in a good way.
It would, but they ain't got the cap room.
They don't. It's just wishful thinking, but yeah.
It ain't wishful thinking for me, man. Piss on the Chiefs.
Okay. If you're still tuned in after we recommended sitting Mike Evans this week, just wait. We got even more bold in this next choice. If you're a fantasy manager who rosters a second QB, think someone like Kirk Cousins or Baker Mayfield. It's time to give that backup a shot this week and sit none other than Josh Allen. We're still going with this, right, Matt?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yep.
just checking.
That's it.
It's bold.
I'm saying it with conviction, brother. Look, he is the QB6 on the season, but it's been a boomer bust year so far, really. 2 games over 30 points, 2 games under 10 points. The last time Josh Allen scored fewer than 10 points was December 29th, 2019, in a game against the Jets in which he only played 2 series, which is just ridiculous. There's a good chance the Bills are going to be without Khalil Shakir again and James Cook. This dude has fewer passing yards than Justin Fields, though he is tied for 5th in passing touchdowns and he's yet to throw a pick. He has fumbled 3 times, though, and we know that's been an issue with him in years past, is ball security and some of the decisions that he makes with the ball. He has 3 games of 1 or 0 passing touchdowns. He's also not running as much as we are used to, averaging just 5 carries for 32 yards per contest this year. In his last 4 games against the Jets, haven't been exactly great. He's averaged 20 of 33 for 215 and a touchdown, plus 1.5 interceptions, 46 rushing yards, 3/4 of a TD, and a fumble per game. Look, the Jets, top-rated coverage defense this year. And to give you an idea of just how good DJ Reed has been, he's essentially been the best cornerback in the game. He's been targeted 18 times. He's given up 6 receptions for 42 yards. That's it. Like, that is it. This Bills offense, they got rid of Stephon Diggs in the offseason, and that has left a massive hole. I get it. They drafted Keon Coleman. He's a rookie. He's raw. They brought in Curtis Samuel. I don't really think Joe Brady knows how to use him. So they've leaned on James Cook. Well, he's dealing with turf toe right now. Yeah. So number 1, that's something that's very painful. Number 2, the only way to heal it is stay off your damn feet. So if he's out, who they going to bring in? Probably Ray Davis. He should get the bulk of the work. They got Ty Johnson, but he's more of a third down back, negative game script kind of dude. Josh Allen has not been the Josh Allen that we are used to seeing this year, as evidenced by those 2 games under 10 points, which, like, that really blew my mind.
Yeah.
Because I saw that and I started going back through and I was like, damn, didn't happen last year. Didn't happen in 22. Didn't happen in 21. Didn't happen in 20. The very end of the season of 2019. Like, that's just ridiculous. There is something wrong there in Buffalo. Plus, he got, we don't know if it was a concussion or what the hell happened to him. But generally, if you're giving somebody smelling salts, it's because something negative happened, right? I don't see it. The Jets changed their, they fired Robert Saleh. And now they got whatever the hell his name is. And that cat was smart enough to say, hey, Nathaniel Hackett, you're not going to be calling plays anymore.
Very smart decision.
That's not really relevant to what Josh Allen is doing, but still, we like to take a holistic view here at Stoned on Sports Fantasy Football. Again, just like Mike Evans, there's a very good chance you either don't have another quarterback or you don't have a better one on your bench. I'm saying in a vacuum, I'm sitting Josh Allen down this week.
Yeah. I mean, him and the Bills have just not looked like that unstoppable force on offense that we have seen in the past. So I think you're right. It figures to be a lower floor spot for Allen this week. Yep.
Yes, he would. We got one more.
Yeah.
The absolute shittiest offense in the NFL belongs to the Cleveland Browns and Jerome Ford, right? Nick Chubb got hurt last year. Ford filled in admirably. He was a running back too. And there were some, we'll call it high-ish hopes. Oh, go.
Yeah! Gone! It is! Yes! Anyway.
Fucking McKinstry, dude.
Yeah, I'm surprised he got the start today. All right, back to
Sorry.
Jerome
Anyways,
Ford.
yes. Jerome Ford. We're going to sit his ass down this week, and Kyle's going to tell you why.
Yeah.
I need to learn to use mute.
Yeah, he was a dud last week, scoring just 7.9 PPR points while seeing his snaps decline. He's been held to 10 or fewer points in 3 out of his last 4 games, and he hasn't scored a touchdown since week frickin' 1. He's averaging just 11.9 in PPR formats. Among the 30 running backs with 45 carries or more, he's got some actually nice marks here, surprisingly. 13 best PFF rush grade. He's 6th in yards per attempt at 5.2. It's pretty good. 9th best breakaway rate. He's 6th in PFF's elusive rating. 3rd most in targets in the receiving grade, in the receiving game. But unfortunately, he's got the 6th worst PFF receiving mark. Middle of the pack, 16th in yards after contact per attempt, just over 3. And he's tied for 22nd in missed tackles forced with 9. I think some of the numbers speaks to how bad the environment is there for Jerome Ford. The Browns as a whole are a horrible team to count on for fantasy production right now and maybe, for the season. Ford hasn't scored that touchdown since week 1. I mentioned he also has yet to eclipse 64 yards rushing in any game this season. The Browns are one of the 8 teams in the NFL that have not that average under 100 yards rushing a game. So they have week 6 at the Eagles. They have the 21st ranked rushing defense in the league. They allow over 128 rush yards per game, but they haven't allowed a running back to hit the century mark this year, and they've allowed the 13th fewest fantasy points to the running back position. A road game. Yeah, the Eagles are just coming off a bye, so they're rested, got a little healthier. I'd count on another multi-score deficit for the Browns, which just makes Ford just too much of a damn risk. He's a very flexy. He's a very risky flex option.
He's a very flexy option this week, huh?
Flexy. I mean, you got buys, you got to deal with them. I get it. So, but I got him in a league. I'm not starting him.
No, and that.
Well, I am if Mixon is not going to play.
Yeah, we do what we have to do, right?
Yeah.
That offense, it really starts with the serial sexual assaulter, Deshaun Watson. He's been really the worst quarterback in the league this year. And when you don't have to respect what the quarterback is doing, it makes it much more difficult to run the ball. So, yeah, I get it. Dude.
I just barely went over. It's okay, she says. She's muting you, only listening to Kyle. Yeah, I mean, that's honestly the best advice that I could give.
Yeah.
Mute Matt. Just listen to me. He occasionally has some good stuff. I mean, he said to bench Josh Allen, but we'll see what happens.
Timothy.
Yes.
Love versus Hurts. I forget who they are playing. Let me see here.
I'm going to go Hurts just off the top of my head.
I'm actually going to go with Love. They're at home against the Cardinals. The Cardinals can score some points, but that defense is really no bueno there.
Yeah, change my vote.
There you go. And Hurts, I don't know. He's just not looked the same. It's almost like he's regressed. But he should have A.J. Brown back. He should have Devonta Smith back. And certainly that's going to have an impact. They're playing the Browns at home. But still, I'm going to go with Jordan Love here.
Okay. Good stuff. All right. If anybody hasn't got any more questions, we're going to get the heck out of here.
Yeah,
we got a baseball game to watch and then follow that up with some Thursday night football. Everybody, good luck in their matchups. We will be back, of course, this Sunday, 12 noon Eastern for Tinker Time. We'll take all your questions there about anything you got. Start, sit, waivers, trades, weather, injuries, any questions you got, we'll answer. It's always a pretty fun show. No script, just shooting the shit and helping you guys out with any last.
We got one more question in the chat.
Fantastic.
What's for dinner?
Goulash, leftover goulash. You?
Chicken wings.
Chicken
Ale
wings.
Emporium.
You dick. How dare you? You didn't tell me anything about that.
I work right around the corner from there, dude.
Well, dang it.
Delicious. Best wings in the city.
Not stinker time, tinker time. And it's named that because everybody tinkers with their lineup there, sometimes for the good and a lot of times for the bad.
I tinkered once and it cost me a championship because
Yeah.
I was in Key West.
You were shit faced, if I remember.
Yes.
Or were you in Key West or Aruba?
Key West.
Okay.
And just tinkered and it cost me. And
yeah.
Kelsey
Cool.
says, now we know where you work. Watch out for stalkers. I would be flattered if somebody wanted to stalk me. Like show that much dedication, just like hang out outside the house.
Yeah. I don't.
Oh, well. All right.
I don't think.
Anyways, let's get out of here.
Yep. Have a good evening, folks. Stay stoned. Good luck in your matchups. Have a good night.
See ya.